Anyway. Okay, cool. So, Nate, I'll do your intro separately. All right, buddy.
Cool. Yeah,
The
sounds great.
Okay, cool. So the first question that I always ask everybody, so I want to make sure I stay consistent with that in my podcast, so my listeners know what to expect right off the bat, is when you wake up in the morning, and this is going to give us an idea of where you're at right now. What is it in your heart that just makes your heart sing out loud for the day, just beat out of your chest for the day
Oh,
ahead of you?
from now on, I might be thinking about the answer to your question every time I wake up. Um, Honestly, it's number one, writing. I love to write, and it's how I express myself as a creative outlet. Number two is just hanging out with my new wife, Dina, and number three, it's just practicing the sort of uh, Taoist mysticism that really turned my life around. So if I can get those three in a day, I'm set. I'm happy. The rest of the day can just demolish. And if I could just do that in the morning, I'm good. So since those are the only three things I really care about, that's what makes my heart sing when I get up.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks. So when you wrote this book, The Standing Meditation, that must have been, I mean, if it's part of your being, that must have been like, do you miss the actual writing part of that book now that it's over?
Well, here's the thing about being a writer, you can't not write. So I'm already working on the next one. So
Wow.
I a little bit. I kind of miss it. I'm still in the honeymoon period. I finished it several months ago or a few months ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the editing process was oh, it was tough. So I'm kind of like happy because it's like spending a year just like, oh, I swear it's almost done. Your friends stop believing you. Uh, so no, I'm good. And now I'm writing like articles and stuff to help
Yeah.
support the book. And I'm working on the second one. So uh, it, it just never ends, man. It never
Cool.
ends.
Well, Nate, I'm like, so for the listeners, Nate gave me a pre-order copy of the book, kindly did that. And I, after I received it, I picked it up almost right away. And I have about 30 pages left in it.
Oh,
And
cool.
I've read over the last few years, I don't know, 100 books on spiritualism and, along that topic, self-development, personal development, stuff like that. And a lot of them aren't written that well, like truthfully,
Oh,
right? They're
thanks.
just not written well. And this one, and I'm not saying this because Nate's a friend of mine and or whatever,
I
but
hate him. So
I'm
go
saying
ahead.
it because, and take this the right, dude. And I'm sure somebody else has said this to you, but it is beautifully written.
Thank you. I
Like there's
appreciate it.
parts of it where I'm like, is this poetry? And I could tell you put a lot of your heart and your writing skills and your copywriting expertise into this book to keep people like you just went, oh man, I don't want to stop reading. I don't want to stop reading. And I'm
Oh,
learning
thanks.
a ton. So I wanted to get that out there for people listening. And then I want to start this off because they're probably wondering, okay, what's the name of the book or why is this book called Standing Meditation? All we talk about is sitting meditation on this podcast. So what enlighten us on this well not new but standing meditation, Nate.
Sure, sure. So let me back up. The standing meditation, it comes from the spiritual tradition of Taoism. And the basics of Taoism is if you ever saw Star Wars, Yoda, that whoever wrote the character Yoda must have studied a heck of a lot of Taoism because that's perfect. The
Ah,
idea that there's a force in the universe that governs everything, and that you practice your spirituality by practicing virtues and by meditation and by getting in touch with nature. The essence of Taoism is seeking harmony or creating harmony through balance. So the Taoists were pretty interesting. They were like, I like to call them the scientists of their day. Their tradition goes back like several thousand years. They originally came, a lot of the mysticism comes from Siberia, but it really kind of coalesced and blossomed in China. Um, and they were all about how can we harness this subtle energy that kind of permeates throughout nature and throughout the universe. How can we live in harmony and truly thrive? So they realized there's there's a tremendous storehouse of energy within the earth itself. And there also is like in the universe above us. And they found out that they do a lot of seated meditation too, but they found out that if you stand in a certain way, it's almost like turning on the faucet. You're opening the spigot for the energy to actually enter into your body. And it's a bizarre sort of way. It seems bizarre at first. I could even get up and kind of show you guys, for those who are watching the video, but it's a bizarre way of standing, and it's not standing straight up, like, and knees locked and all that. But when you do, it actually like opens up your meridians to the energy. And if you ever gotten like an acupuncture treatment or anything like that, or heard of that, they're working with your meridians. Well, you can actually open up and flow energy through your meridians yourself just by standing in a certain way.
Well,
Yeah.
that's, I mean, so the way that he explained it in the book is there's demonstrations, there's pictures, and I practiced it for those. Actually, I'm not even gonna get to that. I want to share that in a little bit, what happened to me.
It
Okay, a
was
little
really
bit
cool.
later. Yeah, it was insane. Actually, it was
Super
really
cool.
cool. It was so fascinating. It was super cool. I'm gonna share that in a little bit. But let's get back. In the book, you talk about your history. All right. Before your standing meditation, you did a lot of personal development. And on this podcast, we talk about connecting to our spouses or our children. But most importantly, it all starts with connecting deep within ourselves. Right. So why wasn't self-development, affirmations, all that stuff working for you if you were paying thousands of dollars for somebody and doing it every day?
Yeah, it was very, very frustrating, because I came from family that really wasn't a loving family. My parents divorced when I was 7, and that's just what I was like programmed with. It's what I was raised with. So that's all I really knew. So I've always been a pretty hardworking guy. But when I went to high school, I really didn't connect with anyone. I had a few like very surface level friendships, but nothing ever really lasted. I could not get a date to save my life. And I thought things would be different when I went to college, because it's a time I could reinvent myself. But the trouble was I couldn't really reinvent myself in a new place if I was the same person. I didn't really know how to change like my how emotionally shut off I was, how socially inept I was, and just how the more frustrated I got, the worse off I was. So then that's when I kind of discovered like self-help. And I read a lot of books, and I just read a lot of stuff online. This is back when the interwebs was still like growing, I guess, is early 2000s. And I bought everything hook, line, and sinker. I was just like, what? You mean I could just like imagine stuff differently and like make it rain cash and stuff like this? This is awesome. It's gonna work.
You remember the first book that taught that said that to you by any chance?
I guess my go-to would be Think and Grow Rich, because that's a big one.
Sure.
If that wasn't my first, that'd be among my first.
Sure.
Yeah. So what was yours? What was your first time, man?
It was actually Think and Grow Rich was the first book that I tapped into in the growth nation.
Yeah. It's a cool. I actually bought a copy recently because just to look through it again with a fresh set of eyes. It's an interesting book. Dr. Hill got way more woo than a lot of people will mention because there's so many abridged versions. He had a lot of interesting stuff in there. But I actually did it. Like I think the culture of self-help, it sets people up for failure because it's just like, here, practice this. And when people go home and they kind of lose their motivation, the guru can always say, well, you just didn't practice consistently enough. But I really did. And I just got more frustrated because number one, any business idea I had or marketing idea, because I was also trying to grow my own business at the time, even if I had like short bursts of like income or something worked out because of a trick or a tactic I used, nothing lasted. I always ended up broke. I never actually felt better about myself. And I was in this constant state of frustration because now I was comparing myself to this lofty idea. It's like, no, I want to make this much money by this amount of time. I want to be like lifting weights this much. I want to be like everything or in this great relationship. And then what would happen when I didn't achieve the goals? I would get more bitter. And then I got to a really bad place where I thought this stuff is all BS. And I started like my mind was programmed to be really, really jaded and think and look at all the examples of people who their lives are a mess, but they still make money, or they're bad people, but things still work out for them. So I was just like, it's all a mess. I started drinking every morning, and I just figured it's all hard work and luck. That's it. So it was rough.
Was it vodka was your drink of choice? Is that what I remember reading?
Smirnoff's triple distilled.
Smirnoff's triple
Got
distilled.
the glass bottle.
Yeah. The reason I asked that is during my heavy drinking days, it was vodka. I vodka on the rocks everywhere I went.
Oh wow, yeah, you too.
Vodka on the rocks. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a morning thing I woke up to, but it was very often thing.
God, yeah, because I woke up to that. It's just like, all right, start the day, mix with an energy drink. Some deranged part of me is just like, I'm going to do vodka triple distill because I don't want like the dark stuff to get a hangover. Oh no.
Justifying, right? That's so you said something interesting, Nathan. Nate, in the my brother's name's Nate. I don't know if we ever shared that story, but you said oh gosh, I got distracted, but you said something really interesting as you were telling that story. So just give me a second.
Sure.
Can you hear my kids in the background, by the way?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
It's cute.
I know.
It's not like distracting kids. It's like cute. Oh, he's a family man doing his thing. So
they're right outside my door playing. So I was like, I can't always choose where they play.
And they started like exactly when we started too.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm kidding, but that's probably how it happened. That's probably what happened.
So I'll think of it again when I get back to it. But the question that was, why wasn't that working for you? And I really found it interesting how you said that you were looking at people that were quote unquote bad people, but were still successful, or doing wrong things, but were still successful. And you're like, what the heck? Why can't I have that? So what was the missing piece? I think a lot of people go through this. I think that's right. You're not alone in this. What was the missing piece? So. Were you putting the wrong energy out? What was it?
The way I like to think is, it's a great question. It's one that pretty much drove me nuts for like several years.
Yeah.
A lot of what I was practicing in terms of self-help, it was trying to affect what I was putting out on like a very surface level. But I wasn't addressing like the deeper psychology, and I wasn't addressing like the deeper imbalances inside of me. To make this really practical, I didn't really realize it, but I buried a lot of anger, just a tremendous amount of anger. And I figured if I could set goals and visualize myself as a success, that would kind of draw me towards success, like steel to, or like iron to a magnet, or whatever a lot of self-help books say. The trouble was the universe wasn't paying attention to my visualizations and my affirmations and my intentions. It was still paying attention to all that buried anger in me. And it's the deeper it's buried, the louder that signal is going to be to the rest of the universe. It's a paradox, but it's the truth. So once I started doing the more esoteric practices, the meditative practices that actually started shoveling up that deeper gunk, that's when I was able to clear it out. And that's when what I was putting out there actually became a really beautiful, positive energy that reflected more thriving into my life. So I had to go deep. And I found when I did that, I didn't really need a lot of the surface stuff, because I just became a naturally positive, kind of happy person anyway. I didn't have to strategize that.
Yeah. You know what I see there is you went from manifesting all these future goals, right? Future things you wanted to achieve, and you wouldn't be happy or satisfied or content until you got those. And now what you're saying is, once you went deeper inside yourself, you were content, You were at peace with where you were at in life. So if you made a goal, this is kind of what I'm getting out of it. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you made a goal, that was great, but you were enjoying the day by day process more because you were connected with yourself in a totally different way than you were previously. Is that
Yeah.
explain it?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
standing meditation has a lot to do with that for you, correct?
Yeah, yeah, it was like the pillar of all that. Yeah, and that's perfect because what so my teachers like to joke, give me what I want or the happiness gets it. It's just like holding your happiness hostage. And like,
I've never heard that. It's great. That's great.
when I heard that, I was just like, oh, that's just so perfect. But it's true. A lot of people are just like that. And then on top of that, it gets more frustrating because you can kind of learn this stuff, and then you're just like, oh yeah. I swear I'm happy now. I'm happy now. Give me what I want. But I swear I'm happy now. It's just like you can't. I wish you could fool them. I want you to get what you want, but you just can't fool them. So that's why the more esoteric stuff works so well, because it's like, all right, fine, I give up with this goal setting. Let me just take care of this and actually really feel good and clean myself up.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to okay. If you I'm highly recommend when you release this. Is there a release date yet?
Yeah, it's like in basically a few days.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, so it'll be, by the time this is recorded, it'll be out.
Yeah.
Post
I scrambled to like get it all done, and at the last minute I was able to
But
pull a bunch of stuff together. Launching a book is tricky, but I did it. So
nice, man. Yeah. So the standing meditation. I'm really. I've had several people in here that wrote books and I've read them, but this one is like it's seriously. Even if you don't do the meditation, there's a lot of wisdom in this book.
oh, cool.
That
Thanks.
yeah, man, and the story is really powerful. You guys like you were a. I mean, this is really funny. I'm sorry, but it is. Actually, I'm not sorry. You were a sign spinner for 3 years.
Sorry, not sorry, dude.
I'm not sorry. Because it's
I'm
hilarious.
laughing. It is. Oh, it is. It's great.
I could understand 3 months or 3 weeks, but 3 years of sign spinning?
Dude, I don't know,
What?
man.
Are you still traumatized from the sign spinning career?
No, to be honest, I think part of why it was so long is because man, it was fun. The truck loading after was awful. But when I worked as a sign spinner, that was a blast.
What was so fun about it? What did you enjoy about it?
Everything. It's honestly, really, it is actually a really zen thing because I was allowed to listen to audiobooks and music as long as I did my job. You could just listen to whatever you want on a pair of headphones, and your only responsibility is to stand on the street corner with a sign. It destroys your ego because I mean, you cannot be an arrogant person after this when people are just driving by and screaming at you. You're wearing a costume. It's just like, that's it. Like,
did anybody throw anything at you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They actually, it's kind of cool though. They missed because I would like look down and there'd just be a splatter of who knows what. I'd just be like, thank you. So, oh yeah, I could tell you some stories, but I mean, just to make sure we're clear, what happened was like after all this self-help stuff just didn't work out, I went bankrupt and got a job as a sign spinner because I discovered something when you dedicate your life to like self-help and trying to grow a business and you drop out of college, all of a sudden, and this is like after the 2008 financial meltdown. It wasn't right after, but it was like within a couple of years. Getting a job was hard. So, but I thought to myself, what can I do that will pay my rent and cover food and all my hard costs, but I can still keep my mind free to make a comeback in the business world? And that sign spinning job was perfect.
Interesting.
Yeah. I probably could have gotten like taken a different career path that actually led somewhere, but I wanted to stay open. So my gut was just like, do it. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah, it's you know what, I like how you analyze that because I think, and I'm not pretty sure you talked about this in your book, like the cost benefit to certain activities ratio. And I have somebody mow my lawn because I have like it brings me like no joy to do that, and I can use my time better spent with my kids or building my business than spending 2 hours mowing the lawn, right? However, when it comes to snow blowing, and maybe I want you to share a couple things, I enjoy going out there because it doesn't take long,
Oh,
right?
good. Yeah.
And I put my headphones on and listen to an audiobook
Cool.
to educate myself, just like you did as a sign spinner,
Yeah.
right? And so I enjoy those times a few times that I choose to go out there and snow blow my driveway, and I don't hire a plow. So I do this with every aspect of my life. Now, I didn't always do that. Is this something that you do? And if so, do you have any like tips or suggestions on how people can go about this?
Yeah, it's absolutely something I do now. Because time is a precious resource. We can't really buy more of it other than buying our way out of tasks like mowing the lawn. So I always think in terms of opportunity cost, which is this thing, the concept I learned that from the investment world, because in the investment world, you could put your money somewhere. You cannot think, or you should not think just in terms of like, okay, I have to give up $100 and put it into this investment, and it'll work out how it works out. You also have to think in terms of, when I put $100 over here to invest it, that means I'm losing out not only on putting $100 over here, I'm losing out on the future benefits of putting the $100 over here. You have to think in terms of the future benefits, because once you do, you'll like Warren. I learned this from Warren Buffett, because he thinks in terms of, I can buy this can of Coke for $1 and it's going to cost $1 now, but I'm probably missing out on $1,000 in the future profits if I actually invest the money. Could be, ironically, he could invest in Coca-Cola. And the guy has had returns that strong that it actually came true. So nowadays, I think of all spending through that lens. So like a $50,000 car, I have to realistically say, I could be giving up $1 million in 20, 30 years. So is that worth $1 million in 30 years? Sometimes the answer is going to be yes. I want to buy some like really delicious organic food. But oftentimes that answer is going to be no. So I think of that in terms of money. I also think of that in terms of like how I spend my time. Like, the biggest one for me was a decade ago. It's about a decade ago. I watched a lot of television. So, and hey, watching TV shows is fun, but I just started thinking to myself, I read about these incredible spiritual masters, and then I started digging into like what their practice is like, and these guys would practice like at least a couple hours a day just on their meditations. And then I read about Olympic athletes. I started Googling around and reading like, your average Olympic athlete might practice their sport 4 hours a day, which is like, oh, that is insane, 4 hours a day. And then I started thinking about how much TV I watch. So I started thinking in terms of the cost of watching that TV and the opportunity cost of what I was missing out on. And after I started thinking about that enough, it drove me crazy, and I just gave my TV to Goodwill. Um, these Only years later did I start like watching any kind of shows again, and it's only going to be like Netflix or something like that. So
You
that's
probably
that's an
figured
example.
out how to like weave it into your life in a healthy way,
Yeah,
right?
like
Whereas
yeah,
before,
it's deliberate. See, that's what it is. It's if I do, it's deliberate. Like, I'm going to sit down and watch Game of Thrones with my wife because that is just awesome. Uh, but the idea of like, oh, I'm kind of bored. Let me flip through something and find something. I've rewired myself enough that I'm just like, I just recoil at that. It's like
your body, you actually feel it in your body, right? Like a reaction where you just can't
yeah,
even, right?
yeah, yeah. It's like someone where they don't like a certain food. If they eat that food, it's not an intellectual thing. It's just
Yeah. And
so.
how does this happen? Because I can relate to that. And some people listening might be like, all right, you know what I mean? If they haven't experienced that before. And does that come with just years of practicing meditation? Does this come with years of spiritual development? I mean, what is that, where do
Um,
those feelings come from, do you think?
that's a good question. I think it's there's like multiple things happening. One is that you start with just habits because you have to build up the habit. And at first, you really do have to force yourself to start a new habit. And even if it's just a minute a day, you have to go through that process where your brain actually rewires to accept that as your new sort of self-image.
Mm.
Um, you also have to adopt, again, deliberately, you have to adopt a new value system where you value your long-term health, you value your long-term growth. So all
Mm.
of a sudden, it's a lot of it is just like, how much do you cherish and love yourself and love your growth? Because if someone were to insult a family member of yours, again, you don't have to like practice like feeling upset about that as like a habit. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, you would recoil at that because you love them. That they're a huge part of your value system. They're a huge part of what you most deeply care about. So it bypasses all like intellectual processing. There's going to be an instant reaction. So you have to have that same sort of love for your own path and personal development and growth and your own value as a human being, or your own value is an eternal soul that's just as worthy of thriving in life as anyone else. So once you get to that point, it's like doing something that's harmful for your health or wasting your time is it's like a deeply offensive thing. It's a cool place to be once you get there. So it's all, it really comes back to valuing and loving yourself as much as you do other things in your life that are just most close to you.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you for that answer. I think a lot of that has to do with just being fully aware of what you enjoy, of who you are, and as a
Yeah.
person, and bringing that to each moment. I think with exactly what you said. I know we're jumping around a lot, but it's because I have a lot of interest and curiosity with you and in
Oh,
this
I love
book
it.
after reading it. But so you're going back to the sign spinner situation. I want the audience listening to understand the patience that Nate had with this practice into what his life is today, right? Because you were practicing this meditation before you started sign spinning, during it, when?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you
Uh,
continued it every day, had a couple jobs in between, and now today you are where? What are you doing today?
well, now I'm very fortunate. I get to make a living writing. I both write like in the world of advertising,
Mhm.
writing sales copy, and also writing my book. So, um, and I got married this September 2020, so this past year. I met the woman of my dreams. It's almost our 3-year anniversary of having met. And so I got my career together first, and then I met her, and now we're living in a house in Golden, Colorado, which was always one of my favorite places to visit. So I'm kind of like, I'm really thrilled to be living here now. So yeah, you're right about the patience. It took longer than I would have wanted. But I did really put my life together in the way I always did want.
Yeah. And how much of this, where you are today, how much of it do you attribute to your standing meditation practice?
Um, I like to call it like the foundational pillar of all
Okay.
this change because it's sort of like it is the practice that got all my other practices to actually work for me. I mean, I also studied business in general. I also studied marketing. I also studied like health and fitness, and I also studied how to be a better communicator. So it would have been cool if I could sit on a cushion and then just kind of transform to a different person. Um, but the way I think of it is all that stuff, I was always running into self-sabotage. I was always running into problems with like my personality and my communication, even if I knew this stuff, it was a source of endless frustration because it's kind of like the old joke about someone who might study, a book with 100 different sexual positions, but he can't get a date on Friday. night. That was essentially like me beyond intellectual knowledge. And that's where this meditative practice came in and really changed me at such a level that everything else that I was trying to make work actually started to work. So you could also think it was like a slice of a pie. I was studying the financial stuff, I was studying the business stuff and health and communication, but I was missing that other piece, which is the more spiritual part. And nothing else was going to work until that part worked. Universe is like, nope, not yet, bro. You got to get that part done first.
Wow, it's so interesting, and I like how you said it was the foundation. And an aha moment for me during that, Nate, was when you said it was the process. I think you said it was the process that allowed all the other processes to happen, something like that. That is very. If I was going to write a book today, and I have no place to write one, I've been practicing for just over 2 years, so I'm not ready to do that yet. But it has the changes that I've noticed personally for meditation. It has allowed me to stick through with things more, way simpler, with more flow, like easiness almost. And I can't explain it. It's just a state of being. And it has allowed me to it's that process that allows all the other processes to actually happen and be consistent. It's up my consistency with things. It's wild. So I completely can understand that. So I want to talk about, I was reading it, I got about halfway through it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to try this dang thing. Right? I'm so committed to my sitting and sometimes guided. I go, you know what? I'm going to try this. And so, do you mind if I just explain kind of what happened?
Oh, please. Yeah. Cause I want to hear this live.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because we texted, but.
So actually, why don't you share the position? Just describe a little bit of what it would look like. There's not a lot of people watching on YouTube. It's 90% are listeners. Sure. So if you could just describe of what.
Yeah, I can. The essence of it is that you want to relax and straighten and elongate your spine. So when you stand, you start with your hips. And the way I describe in the book is it almost like you're turning and tucking your hips forward, like you're sitting on a really, really high bar stool. That's how to think of it. Like, let's say you saddle up to the bar and it's a really high bar stool. You're not going to squat on the thing because it's almost like level with your tailbone. So you just kind of like rotate your hips forward and down a bit so that your lower back actually flattens out. It straightens out so you don't have that bump in your lower back. It's almost like kind of you know how some people they want to actually kind of stick their butt out for their Instagram photos. You're doing the opposite of that, so you're not going to be Insta worthy, but that's okay.
No, that position is not an Insta worthy picture position. That's for sure for men or women.
We're gonna start a new Insta trend. It's just like, nope. Goodbye the butt. All right. So anyway, and as a result, when you do that, your knees are going to unlock slightly. And that's what makes this position like actually a pretty darn challenge for a lot of people, because all of a sudden you got to hold yourself up without locking your knees. Now that's going to make a lot of people, your thighs are going to cook, but that's good. Once you get through that period where your thighs are burning like crazy, you can actually hold the position really, really easily. And you don't have to bend your knees like a squat. The idea is you just unlock them and your feet are a little bit wider than your shoulders and your toes are pointed straight forward. Most people splay their feet slightly outward, which is fine if you're just doing your thing, whatever. But in this meditation, they're straightforward. Now, as a result of all this, it's working with your meridians and it's working with your channels of energy and it's opening them up. By putting your feet straight forward and unlocking your knees, it allows the energy to go up to your hips. By tucking your hips forward a bit and relaxing your lower back, it allows the energy to go into your body. And then you hold your arms in a position where it's almost like you're hugging a really giant tree. You relax your elbows slightly, so you're not holding your arms straight up, they're relaxed slightly. But on the other hand, you're not holding your arms straight down either with your elbows pointed towards the earth. They're a little bit out to your sides. So it really is like you're giving someone a big barrel hug.
Mm-hmm.
And your arms are wide enough so that if someone were to look at you from the front, it would look like your hands are roughly as wide as your shoulders are, and your palms are kind of facing the center of your chest. And then you imagine that you're able to push the ceiling with the top of your head. So you tuck your chin down a little, which a lot of people might think, really, you tuck your chin down. But actually, when you tuck your chin down, the true top of your head goes up. So this is the top part of straightening your spine. Everything you're doing is about, it's almost like giving yourself a chiropractic stretch, very gently, but every movement you're doing is actually elongating and putting space within your spinal discs or in between your spinal discs. And then you relax your chest so that your back flares out. Again, it's opening up your back and spine. And then you hold that position.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. So the first day I did it, I was like, oh, this position feels weird. And as like consider myself an athletic person, working out 3-4 days a week. The position wasn't difficult to hold, right, for me. So I did the first day I did like 8 or 9 minutes, and I was like, okay,
Cool.
You know what I didn't know what to expect. I'm like, all right, I just wanted to try it out, right? Just test this, not test, but actually just do it. So I did that, and I did it first thing in the morning. And then the next day, day 2, I was like, all right, I read your book and I realized there's a point where you're going to feel some pain. And I felt it in my shoulders at the 7-8 minute mark the day before. And so I read that, and it's like surrender through the pain, right? Let it be, breathe into it. And so I said, okay, today I'm going to go longer, and I'm going to, when I get to that point, I'm going to allow myself to just kind of let it be. And I keep wanting to use the word fight through it, but it's really not fighting through it. So I pressed my timer and started in the position. And honestly, that second day, actually after the second day, the position feels normal now. You know, like I enjoy it. I enjoy being in that position. Yeah. So anyway, so the second day after doing this meditation, I wrote this in my journal, the exact thing that happened, but not, just normal. Everything's happening, and I'm focusing on different parts of me. So I'm focusing on keeping, rounding my chest. I'm focusing on everything you were explaining with the standing, right? I'm focusing on my feet, staying grounded, not too much on the ball, not too much on the heel, focusing on my hips, staying tucked under, and I'm just going through this, not like boom, 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 boom. That's what I'm doing. And one thing I like about this practice is it helps you not think as much and get lost in thought, because you're mostly thinking about your position.
Yeah,
I noticed
it's
that.
really cool. It's like gives the dog a bone to chew on,
Exactly.
It's really cool.
I'm glad you said that, because that's right. So, and I want Nate to talk more, so I'm not going to go too deep into this, but long story short, about the 12-minute mark, I'm surrendering through some painfulness, some shoulder pain, and a little bit in my legs. And all of a sudden my butt muscles, my glutes, just started loosening. Boom, 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 boom. It was the weirdest thing. And I was, oh, this is weird. Okay. Just like felt like 4 pops, like loosen. And then all of a sudden this wave of, and I'm tingling talking about it because I'm remembering how it felt. It was this feeling that I can't explain, of a wave of like cleaning myself maybe, or tingling, just whoosh, whoosh. And that was like the sound almost that it was making, whoosh. And I couldn't move. I didn't want to move. I had no desire to move. I was staying in the position, and I just started crying, like uncontrollably. It's 5 in the morning. It's like 5:15 in the morning. My kid's right across the room. My son's right across the room, and I'm like, I don't want to wake him up. And I'm like, that's what I'm thinking, but I can't. And I'm like, so then I just start breathing and calming myself down. I had tears running down my face. And this happened at like the 12 to 13 minute mark, if I could put a time point on it. And I just calmed down, and I still felt the waves going through my body, and I stayed there for another minute or two. And then I got out of it once I was back to a normal rhythm, stood up. I felt like I was 30 feet tall, Nate. Like it was this
Nice.
weird, my
That's
shoulders were
great.
up, I felt 30. And as I was writing, I sat down and wrote in my journal right away because I'm like, what just happened? So I wrote the whole thing down. And as I'm writing, this tingling and rushing was still happening. Not as intense, but it was
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
So I had no idea to expect that. No, like now I'm thinking, okay, every time I do this, I need to have this feeling, right?
If only.
Yeah, if only. So I couldn't, I believe that, and it was in my hip glute area. I must hold a lot of tension. I mean, maybe you can explain something that possibly
Sure.
happened there. What do you
Sure.
think
Yeah. Yeah.
happened?
Well, as you recall, the first thing I told you was congratulations. So again. I get to say in person here, congratulations, or at least over this call.
Well, thank you for introducing me
Yeah.
to this. I would have never had this
Oh,
experience.
my pleasure. That's great. And I mean, I mean that because that's pretty dramatic and pretty fast. Everyone's experience is going to be different because we're all different people. But essentially, yeah, everyone is going to carry tension in their hips. I want to meet the person that does not carry tension in their hips. I really do, especially because we spend all day sitting, and it's just an area of our body that's it's just very connected to how do I put this? It's like when I talked about this meditation, like lengthens, stretches your spine. Well, your hips are the termination point of the bottom of your spine. So there's going to be a lot of emotional stuff there, especially connected to like root chakra, survival, career, physicality, things like that. So what happened essentially is, I'm glad you mentioned that your glutes relax, because a major part of this meditation is relaxing your glutes. Because when you stand with your knees just slightly unlocked and you tuck your hips, your bone structure is able to take your weight, and you rest down onto not the front of your foot, but more toward the back of your foot. Like you want most of the weight to fall on the arches and heels.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And you'll find when you do that and you get everything else correct, it's like, wow, it's like my bones are just holding me up, like all my muscles and stuff just became like hanging on a coat hanger. It's the funniest feeling, and it's really cool. And that's, as a result, you're opening yourself. So when you did that, you opened yourself. It was like that spigot just turned another notch, and the energies went, whoo, and you're right about the cleaning. That's what's going on. This whole process is cleaning the gunk, the emotional gunk that's just caked into every part of your body. And you just hit a big one. And whatever you hit must have been a memory that you had to bury a lot of grief around, because you were finally able to process that grief and openly cry without waking up the poor kids. And now it's gone. Now you've released it forever. And now your reward for that is you get more energy that'll hit some other horrible pocket of thing. And next time you might feel really upset or angry. Who knows?
So have you ever had an experience similar to that?
Similar, yes. Everyone's different. So I don't think I've really cried during the standing meditation, but I've absolutely had experiences, I mean, so many times, where an emotion will come up. Like I'll start like getting irritated about something, and there's nothing to even be irritating about. Now I know what's going on, so I'm just like, bring it, let's do this. So it's just like, and it just comes up and up and up, and all of a sudden, like something might click in my body. Like maybe I'll have a click in my spine, or maybe I'll just relax deeper. Like my shoulder just go, ah, oh, and finally, I didn't even know it was tense, but I reached a whole new level of relaxation. And then it's like a wave of energy goes through me, and I'm just like, and I get like a kind of a mini version of what you went through.
Well, I think I went through that because I never have cried my entire life. Like I've never been a
Yeah.
crier.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins made me open me up, and I bawled like crazy. A couple weeks after that event, I kept crying, and not much around that. A couple meditations have made me tear up for sure. Some compassion meta meditations, but that was nothing that like that, which
Cool.
released something that I've been holding on to.
Yeah, and who knows what will. I'm glad you brought up. It's like us. It's like it's not going to happen every time. Mostly, dare I say it won't. I don't want to set expectations where, hey, someone might have a cool release every time, but chances are I like to think of this meditation. It's like investing long-term in the stock market. Just play it safe, put a little bit of money in, and don't expect to like hit the jackpot, because you'll drive yourself nuts. But years from now, you're going to look back and be like, I really did hit the jackpot. So, and that's true for all meditation. So what'll probably happen for going forward from here for you is that you just keep on relaxing, you keep on working yourself, and you almost want to go as if that never happened. You're just doing your thing. You're putting in your time. You know what the fundamentals are, and you just keep going, and you'll get something else, and you'll get another break in the future. But even if you don't, every time you practice, there's going to be little breaks going on that might not even register, but they're happening. They're always happening. So you can always look back and just be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I didn't have some blowout spiritual experience, but um, you know, pat yourself on the back. Good work.
Yeah, I didn't do it for that. You know what? I just did it to do
Yeah.
it, to have to experience that meditation. And every time I sit down to meditate, I don't have, you don't have any expectations. I just sit down to meditate. I just sit down to do it. And so the way I've incorporated it for people wondering, because I talk about this often, is I either do the standing meditation right now, just to see where I'm at, but in the morning or in the afternoon, and then I do my sitting the opposite. So I still sit each day. I'm just incorporating some standing time, either morning or afternoon.
Oh, that's great. And I mean, in the day, I wrote the book on a staying meditation. That's what changed my life, and that's what I think is a really solid introductory process to get the really powerful benefits. But the Taoists practice all kinds of they do guided meditation. They do a lot of seated stuff too. So it's all good. It's great.
How often do you want to just not do it?
Um, I'm a weird guy, and since I went through all that, I've been doing this for many years. So these days, I'm I'm pretty good to go. Because I just love it. It feels so great. So I'd be like a dog locked up in a cage if I didn't get to do it. So the only thing I still have to get through is that old resistance when I'm just sitting in my chair or something, just like, oh, maybe I'll just check my email one more time. Now I know what I'm doing. I'm just like, hey, oh yeah, check your email, buddy.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing on
It reminds me of
email.
like it reminds me of like of setting your alarm at, for really early in the morning to accomplish something, and all you got to do is swing your legs out of bed, but you're like, I'll just close my eyes for one more minute. I'll just,
Yeah.
no, swing your legs out and do it.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to, man. It's just swing your legs out and do it. So
Yeah.
that never goes away. That's what I've often studied about, like the difference people who are like really successful, not apart from the spiritual aspect of it. It's like because to even walk the spiritual path, you still just got to have that grit where you're just like, all right, we're doing it again. Let's go. And
Yeah.
no way around that.
How long are you practicing it right now? Like in one session?
Oh gosh. To put my answer into context, it's been, oh gosh, time keeps flying. It's been like 12, 13 years since I started doing standing meditation. Every time I answer that question, I always have to like add a year. It's getting interesting. And since that time, I've taken my studies much, much, much deeper. So right now I'm studying to become and training to become a Taoist priest. And I'm also getting my doctorate in Chinese energetic medicine. And both those require a lot of training. Um, so right now, like all my practices that I have to do for that, which are all like spiritual, mystical, meditative practices, probably I'm clocking in almost 4 hours a day, every day. And some days, of course, I have to like just do two or something like that. Um, so, and I want to preface that. Well, like I said, I'm studying to be a priest right now and getting a doctorate. So it's kind of a different thing. Like I made that decision and I sacrifice a lot, but you want me to answer? That's
Yeah,
what I'm up
well,
to
yeah,
now.
Nate,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's where you're at right now, right?
Yeah.
If
That's
you
what
were
I'm doing.
practicing to be in the NBA, you're gonna play basketball 8 hours a day.
Right.
That's so that makes total sense.
Yeah.
And what about someone that's gonna start brand new? What do you have as someone who's been practicing for so long? And that is wild because I remember saying, yeah, I've been practicing every day for 3 months. I've been practicing every day for 6 months because people would ask, because and then, oh yeah, 1 year, 2 years. And it just all of a sudden you look back and like, holy crap,
Yeah.
for you it must be just wild that you're 10 plus years of a
It's
day,
pretty cool.
something you're doing every single day, intentionally doing every single day. Right.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's also funny. I just got to throw in real quick.
Yeah.
Because the teachers I'm studying with, they're just like, all right, little Nate, you keep going. Because some of these guys, they've been practicing like 40 years. So it's just like, oh, there's all different levels. It's interesting.
Yeah. And so what about somebody brand new? Do you have some advice that you'd give them?
Oh yeah. I mean, I started with 60 seconds, literally. Um, and part of that was because just unlocking my knees made my thighs just burn like crazy. It's like, what the heck? I work out. Apparently, I don't know. I had a weak spot. I don't know. I'm kind of a tall guy, but so I had to get my legs used to just holding still with my arms up and my knees unlocked. So I started with 60 seconds. 60 seconds. And that's great. If you could do 60 seconds, that's great. That's fabulous. 99.99% of people do zero. They don't even get to hear this stuff. And when they do hear it, they don't do it. So even just doing it for a minute. And then the next day, I was kind of like, I was thinking of this old myth. Well, who knows? It might have actually happened. I think the guy's name was Milo. He was trained to be a wrestler, and he also was a farmer. This is thousands of years ago. So he had a calf. It was a newborn calf, and he'd pick it up and he'd carry it. Well, every day the calf's going to get bigger, but every day he just picked it up and he carried it like 100 yards or something. So of course he gets stronger. Calf gets bigger, grows up. Pretty soon he's carrying around a bull. So the idea is he just did it every day, and the increase in the task was imperceptible. If you look at a calf that's 25 days old versus 26 days old, you probably aren't going to be able to tell the difference unless you're a cow farmer. So I took that same idea to the standing meditation, and I added 5 seconds a day. Now, what's the difference between 60 seconds and 65? Mentally, I didn't really consider it to be any different. Physically, my body didn't really consider it much different either, because I was strengthening my leg muscles. They're some of the biggest muscles in your body. So if you had 5 seconds and no extra weight, you're going to handle it. So 65 became 70, became 75, 80, couple minutes. And by the time I got to where you're at, like around 8 minutes, your muscles get strong enough that your tendons and your bones take over. So it's no longer a workout, which is good. And I just kept on adding 5 to 10 seconds until I got past the point where it was a new habit. All of a sudden, it was part of me. I wasn't a guy like, oh yeah, I gotta start doing this meditation. I really should do this, man. Now I'm like, oh, I'm someone who meditates. It's part of who I was. And I always did similar to you. I did first thing in the morning. So it became my brushing teeth routine. You don't have to think about brushing your teeth. You don't have to motivate yourself. You don't have to write down a goal or an affirmation. I'm going to brush my teeth. It's just, well, yeah, I just do it. So once I got to that point where it's like, well, yeah, I'm a guy who does this 10 minutes a day. It feels weird if I don't. Once I got there, you couldn't stop me. So that'd be my advice to someone new to this: get to there. And it's not easy, but once you get there, you're going to be off to the races.
Yeah, that's great advice.
It's what I had to do. So I hope it works. I mean, that's I mean, this has been practiced and taught for thousands of years, and the master's always just like, look, it's gonna hurt, and the masters could be like, they enjoy it too. There's like, yeah, it's gonna burn. Too bad. I had to do it.
Well,
I had to do my master would beat me or something like that.
probably, right?
Yeah, probably.
What about what about your relationships outside of yourself? Was all that affected by this too?
Yeah.
Kind of a rhetorical question, but
well, I mean, but it points to a real practical benefit. And they were, because I felt good when I did the meditation. I'm like, oh, this is cool. But that's one thing. It's another thing for me to run into someone that I hadn't seen for a couple of months and them to be like, oh man, you're looking good. Something's different about you. I'm like, I didn't change anything other than this meditation practice. Oh, and I was back then when I first started, man, I was arrogant dude. I'm just like, hey, anything that makes people like me more. Please. So I'm just like, if other people pick up on the difference, I'm going to double down even more. So yeah, I mean, but so to answer your question, absolutely. Yeah. People notice a difference in me. But here's the thing. It's a double-edged sword. And here's what, a lot of cool people, a lot of really great people started to see the difference in me and see that as a calmer and more likable, more open person. So I smiled more, I frowned less. A lot of other people who were in my life who were not the nicest people, not the most ethical people, not the greatest people, oh boy, they start to like me less. I'd get in arguments with them. And I lost a lot of relationships. I lost a business. I was in a business with two partners, and we were button heads a lot, and we were some pretty strong and not the nicest personalities, or at least two of us. Yeah, one guy was nice, but the two of us were just button heads. And it came to a breaking point where he essentially kicked me out of the business. It was an online business, and he changed the passwords on the merchant account and like the email software system. And just, I mean, you're in the biz, so it's like, just picture that, waking up one morning just being like, oh boy, someone else set up all these accounts and the corporate stuff, and I'm out. So I fully attribute that at a deep level to the standing meditation practice. And I say that in a good way, because I'm glad I'm out of that business. And it's pretty clear that once I started practicing this, there was no turning back and preserving my old relationships. Now, fortunately, I developed a lot of great new relationships since then. But in the spiritual path, my teachers say you will lose friends. And you might have to go through a period of solitude, but you'll get great, like we call it friends of the Tao, friends who will support you on your journey. But it can be very rough waters in between that point.
that makes
Mic drop.
Yeah, those are the moments. That's where the silence comes from, the mic drop moments. Well, Nate, you shared a lot with us today. I could keep going for a long time. Actually, one thing that kept coming through my mind, this is so ludicrous, but as a sign spitter, did your shoulders just get absolutely ripped during that time or what?
No, because you know what? It's endurance, man. It's like I was like a marathoner. So no, if only they had given me like this 150-pound sign that I only had to like lift like a few times a day, then I'd just be like, no, I was so broken just living on like giant bags of beans and rice from Costco. Man, I got scrawny.
Did you eat the ramen noodles too?
I didn't do ramen. I just got no, I'm sorry, it wasn't Costco, it was Sam's Club. I got the Sam's Club membership, and I did like just the big bag of bulk beans and rice, and so it was cheaper than tomato sauce, interestingly enough. So, and I like spicy food, so I made a lot of pizza. And oatmeal. That was my thing, man. But yeah, I lost a lot of weight too. I look bad.
If if you could go back, this is the last question I want to ask you here. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self any advice, and they would listen, what advice would you tell them? What good information?
It's a great question. The thing I learned is that I found and I sought out and found a lot of information, when I was that age and onward. But if I really could tell myself something and my younger self would listen, it would be practice the meditation, practice the Taoist mysticism. You've got all the information you could possibly get at your fingertips. I mean, now it's 2021. That's especially true. But what's really going to move the needle for you is doing this simple practice. So that's a big reason why I wrote the book the way I did, because if I could meet myself, like open up a portal and see my younger self, I just throw the book in myself.
That's cool.
So that's what I would do.
So usually I just stop here and press pause, but I wanted to comment on that. You cool with that?
Oh yeah, man, let's do this.
So I've asked this question to 70 people,
Cool.
maybe 65, 70 people in the last year and a half. And no one's ever said that. And I've actually been waiting, interestingly enough, been waiting for somebody to say that, because right on my website it says if I could go back and tell my 18-year-old self anything, it would be to just sit down and meditate every day.
Yeah.
And the answers will unfold after that. It was such, my sage advice, great advice. And finally, it has happened. It has happened where somebody has said what I was anticipating.
That's good. Yeah. I'm sure the other people said lovely things, but I do think it's a paradox. It's like, wait, it's about a spiritual meditative practice. The answer is like, I don't want to give that. I mean, we've all heard advice and we forgot all of it. So,
well, that's interesting, right? Because yes, exactly. You could read 100 books and just not put any of it into practice. That's a lot of people do that. And yes, by the way, Nate, I think I want to write a book and just put all the answers of all these people's answers in the book and just put it out there.
That'd be cool.
As a little coffee table book or something.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah. So yeah, they've been beautiful answers, but thank you, dude, so much. Seriously, Nate. And it's great catching up with you. And make sure you tell Dina I said hello. Dina's the one that Nate's not big on social right now. Is that going to change?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably. We'll see. But I don't know. Something actually really could shift. I do publish a lot of articles and I'm writing content, but we'll see. I'm a more of a do something like this and really talk kind of guy.
And where do you direct people then? To your website?
I've got a website where I publish my articles. It's my name, naterifkin.com. And if you're curious, my book, it's on Amazon. And you can go to thestandingmeditation.com and that'll actually just go right to that Amazon page. So right now, those are my two main efforts, just writing articles and I've got my book out there. So I'm really excited to how it's going to change some lives.
Sweet, man. I figured if you're launching a book, it would definitely be on Amazon, hopefully. So that's good. Thestandingmeditation.com. Good. You got the domain. Nice.
Yeah, I got the domain. I just forwarded it to the page to Amazon, so I don't want to be like, it's on www.amazon.com/Q3X9, whatever the link.
I like it. Well, I again, I'm gonna I'll say it again. I highly recommend, even if you aren't into spiritualism that much and you're just listening to this podcast for your deepening your relationship with your spouse and kids, like, it's a really, really well written, really good read, really good book. And if you want to ever get yourself introduced to some sort of spiritualism, so I definitely would recommend this one. I did not I didn't have any expectations, but I didn't expect it to be this good. If that makes any sense. If that makes any sense at all, Nate. So, all right, man, I'm going to press stop now. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir.